I mean, I guess a bill to introduce a referendum that's been talked about for the last year is some form of, I hesitate to use the word progress, and clearly this referendum idea doesn't support that, nor does the lack of funding support it. What did the Premier do? Once again, she said, it's up to the mayors. It's up to the mayors. It's up to the mayors to come together, step up to the table, and come up with the question. This was in response to many people questioning why we continue to have delay and confusion and disagreement between ministers and the Premier over what the referendum would look like. Honourable Speaker, I would say that the government needs to get on the same page with its own commitments, its own signed memorandum of agreement with the Metro Vancouver Mayor's Council, and meet the promise that they made almost 4 years ago to agree on funding options for TransLink, scrap this referendum idea and get on with it, because everybody knows that it needs to be done. TransLink is trying to maintain service levels, and clearly TransLink will not be able to do that until it's assured of funding. We will see a continuing decrease of per capita service levels projected to reach 2004 levels by 2020. This will force more people to buy cars, and once people buy cars, they're committed to driving them. This is not how we are going to get more people into transit, Honourable Speaker. It is not how we're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Let me close by simply saying what the reaction of some of the mayors was to the announcement of a referendum. The reaction of mayors who are now working in good faith to try to deal with the hand that was dealt them, to come up with priorities and come up with a plan, to come up with a referendum question, so that given this government's majority and the intransigence of the Premier and her government about holding this referendum despite widespread opposition, they are working in good faith, Honourable Speaker, to try to make that a success. The Mayor of Surrey: we just really need to stop playing politics and get the job done. Mayor of Richmond, referring to the referendum, a recipe for disaster. It will divide the whole region, and if it fails, we'll be further behind than we ever were. A referendum is simply a way to avoid responsibility. The Mayor of White Rock: an absolute, utter, and total mistake, and a total abrogation of responsibility. The Mayor of Port Coquitlam, who in 2005 was a BC Liberal candidate, Greg Moore: the hypocrisy of this policy platform proposal is unbelievable. The Mayor of Coquitlam, a former member on the other side of the House: we need a solution, we don't need political posturing. This from a former Liberal MLA. The Mayor of Vancouver called it ridiculous, and the Chair of the Mayor's Council, the Mayor of North Vancouver District, said it's clearly a deflection of the province's responsibility. Honourable Speaker, this was not requested by the mayors. A referendum is not a condition that is being placed on other infrastructure or transit planning or highway planning or road planning. This is a one-off. This is an ill-thought-out and arbitrary decision and condition being placed on Metro Vancouver only. Metro Vancouver is important. It's critical to the economy of British Columbia. It's not just the people of Metro who deserve to be able to move around the region. It's not just the livability of the region by getting cars off the road that's at stake. It's the economy of the whole province whose goods pass through the ports of Metro Vancouver and which pass through more slowly as a result of congestion. Honourable Speaker, we have opposed this referendum from day one. Metro Vancouver deserves better. The people of the region deserves better. The mayors and councillors in the region deserve more respect, and they deserve a government that will live up to its signed agreements. Honourable Speaker, The province deserves better because the provincial economy depends on it. Finally, Honourable Speaker, let me simply say that it's not enough to have this one referendum, which we have opposed from day one and we will continue to oppose. This legislation, this bill, Bill 23, I've already mentioned that the minister confirmed that a referendum on improvements to TransLink was arbitrary. It was a one-off. It's imposed only on this region. This bill not only calls for a referendum now, it calls for perpetual referenda for any increase in funding for services, transit services, new infrastructure, increased number of buses on existing routes, any increase in service that isn't funded by the first referendum will have to go to a future referendum under this legislation. Honourable Speaker, why on earth the Transportation Minister would take a bad idea and write it into legislation in perpetuity is beyond me, but that, among other reasons, is why this side of the House will stand with the mayors and councillors of the Metro Vancouver region and oppose this legislation, oppose this referendum, and oppose future referenda because it is a bad idea, it's an unfair idea, and it will hurt the region and the economy of British Columbia, as well as the people who depend on this government for leadership, leadership that we are not seeing. Thank you very much.
Minister of Education.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. In the short time that I have so many thoughts I would like to share, but let me start with the first most important one. And that is that this piece of legislation is probably the most democratic process for the people of Metro Vancouver that we could have. And Madam Speaker, I am somewhat amazed that members opposite don't want to give voters a chance to have a specific voice on both shaping the future of the region and how that is going to be funded. And Madam Speaker, in the time that I served in local government, I clearly heard from people in Metro Vancouver on many occasions that they wanted a say, and a more specific say, in how transportation was going to be developed and also how it was going to be funded. So, Madam Speaker, as I said in the debate on Bill 22, it is very clear to me that this government is committed to saying to the people of Metro Vancouver, you have a right to have a voice on one of the single most important funding initiatives that you will face coming forward. There are many others. There's waste disposal, there is water, there are all of those other things. But Madam Speaker, if the mayors continue to say that property tax cannot be used as additional funding, then the mayors also have to work with the people in the region to communicate clearly what it is they believe are appropriate sources and not just one-offs, Madam Speaker. The sustainable funding for the region is going to be critical in how it is integrated and how it moves forward over the next 5, 10, and 15 years. And the people of Metro Vancouver have a right to hear the vision, to hear what the mayors believe are the funding sources, and then to be able to express their support for that. Because again, Madam Speaker, at the end of the day, there's only one taxpayer. They pay for their services, they pay for all of the infrastructure, they pay for all of the things that are coming forward. And transportation, because of its significant impact on every sector of our society, the people of Metro Vancouver have a right, as we move forward, to lay it out. The challenge now, Madam Speaker, absolutely leading up to the referendum, is to absolutely clearly identify and recommunicate the vision that was developed. It was called the 2040 vision, and Madam Speaker, that vision has been refined. There have been changes made to it, but the fundamental principles, Madam Speaker, and I know that the member from Burnaby Deer Lake has notes from someone close to her, and I appreciate that she might be wanting to share those in her comments. But Madam Speaker, I have had lots of opportunity to debate with various mayors from various communities, and the mayor of Burnaby is one of the ones who has worked consistently to defeat any initiative to move ahead, Madam Speaker. And I make no apology for saying that. I said that when I sat at the table, Madam Speaker. I'll continue to say it. But that said, Madam Speaker, that said, the rest of the mayors, the subcommittee that they've now formed, are working very hard, and I applaud them for it. I applaud them for the fact that they are willing to move ahead in a positive way, Madam Speaker, and I know they are going to come up with this government with a very clear articulation of the vision. And the minister has clearly said that the government will support them and will ensure that that message gets out. It is their responsibility to communicate it, but we are going to work with them to ensure it is very clear that all of the issues are there, and, Madam Speaker, that it clearly articulates how that fits in to the vision of this province on concepts I know the members opposite have trouble understanding, called balanced budgets, reducing debt, growing the economy. And I clearly understand that the members opposite would like to see the government spend more money, but the reality is, Madam Speaker, the reality is those concepts escape them. I clearly understand, Madam Speaker, that those concepts may escape them when it comes to the funding of transportation, which is significant. And an economy that supports that is critical. A region that looks at those implications is critical. And Madam Speaker, noting the hour, I would move that we adjourn debate, and I reserve my right to continue my remarks at the next sitting.
The current government proposes the introduction of a referendum to the financing of public transportation. Politicians on the opposition believe that the referendum is being misused as a delay tactic to deflect the government's responsibility to adequately fund public transportation. Apart from the potential misuse of referendum, direct democracy by referendum has been well utilized and supported recently in BC by a significant number of citizens. Here on nowpolling.ca, provincial governments, you go to transportation systems, and then you look for BC Transit, and here's the poll. If you don't see your initiative, your choice, your opinion listed here, the only reason is that you have not added it here yet. Next week, we will continue with the second part of this debate, and meanwhile remember that participation is the essence of direct democracy.